Caleb grew up in a small town where the streetlights flickered on just as kids were called inside for dinner. His house had a wide front yard, slightly sloped with a maple tree that had survived 100 foul balls. That yard was his first stadium. Every evening, Caleb would toss a baseball straight up into the pink and gold sky and whisper the same words, "One day, the big leagues." On his bedroom wall were posters of Milwaukee Brewers, New York Yankees, and a slightly crooked one of Ken Griffey Jr., smiling mid-swing. Caleb studied that swing like it was scripture, smooth, effortless, powerful. At age 7, he slept with a glove under his pillow. At 10, he told his teacher he didn't want to be an astronaut or a firefighter. "I'm going to the MLB," he said, as if it were already scheduled. And here's the thing, he was good. By middle school, he had a fastball that whistled just a little when it left his hand. By 14, scouts were showing up at games, leaning against fences with clipboards. His name started appearing in local newspapers. People would nudge his parents at church. "That boy's going somewhere." At 16, Caleb felt like his life was lining up exactly the way he'd drawn it in his mind. Then one rainy October night changed everything. It wasn't dramatic in the way movies make accidents dramatic. There was no slow motion, no heroic music, no fiery explosion, just rain, headlights, a slick curve in the road, and then metal meeting metal. When Caleb woke up in the hospital, everything felt quiet. Too quiet. His right leg was wrapped heavily, his shoulder burned. Machines beeped in patient rhythm. His father was holding his hand. His mother was praying softly under her breath. The doctors were kind, but their words felt like cold wind. The damage to his shoulder would make high-level pitching nearly impossible. His leg would heal, but not the way it was before. College scouts stopped calling. The posters stayed on his wall, but they felt like memories instead of promises. For a while, Caleb stopped talking about baseball. He watched games on television, but with the sound turned off. He didn't throw a ball for months, and at night, when the house was asleep, he stared at the ceiling and wondered who he was supposed to be now. Here's something nobody tells you when you're 16. When a dream falls apart, it can feel like you've fallen apart with it. But life is funny like that. Sometimes the ending of one story is just the first paragraph of another. Rehabilitation was slow, painful, boring. Caleb went to physical therapy 3 times a week. He relearned small things, balance, stability, strength. He spent more time sitting than running, and when you sit long enough, you think. He started going back to church, not because he felt strong, but because he felt lost. One Sunday, the pastor spoke about identity, not in what we do, but in who we are. Caleb listened carefully. "You are not your achievements," the pastor said gently. "You are loved before you accomplish anything." That sentence settled somewhere deep inside him. He had always introduced himself as the baseball player. If he wasn't that, who was he? He began volunteering with the church youth group. At first, just setting up chairs, then helping lead small discussions. He told younger kids about resilience, about dreams, about how sometimes God's plans look nothing like ours. And something unexpected happened. When he spoke, people listened. Not because he was famous, not because he was impressive, but because he was honest. He talked about disappointment without bitterness. He talked about hope without pretending everything was easy. One evening after youth group, a quiet 7th grader stayed behind. "Does it ever stop hurting?" the boy asked. Caleb didn't give him a polished answer. "It changes," he said, "and sometimes it becomes something good." The boy smiled just a little. That night, Caleb went home feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose. Years passed. Caleb never returned to competitive pitching, but he did coach Little League. He showed kids how to grip a fastball and how to shake off a bad inning. "Control what you can control," he'd say, grinning. He enrolled in college, not for sports, but for theology. The first time he stood behind a pulpit to preach, his hands trembled more than they ever had on a mound. He looked out at the congregation. Some faces were tired, some hopeful, some hurting. He took a breath, and he told them about a dream he once had. He told them about rain and headlights and hospital rooms. He told them about discovering that God's plans aren't detours. They're roads we couldn't see from where we were standing. And he realized something beautiful. The courage he'd built on the baseball field, the discipline, the perseverance, none of it was wasted. It had simply been preparing him for a different arena. Years later, Pastor Caleb Harper stood outside the church on a warm spring evening. A group of kids were playing catch in the yard next door. The sun dipped low. The sky turned that familiar pink and gold. One little boy shouted, "One day, the big leagues." Caleb smiled. He still loved baseball. He still followed the Major League Baseball standings. He still felt a spark when he heard the crack of a bat, but he no longer felt the ache of what might have been, because he had discovered something better. He wasn't meant to stand on a pitcher's mound. He was meant to stand beside people in their hardest seasons and remind them they are more than their broken dreams. And here's the lighthearted truth. Sometimes the biggest wins don't come with trophies. They come with transformed hearts, with quiet conversations, with lives gently redirected. That night, Caleb walked home under the stars, feeling peaceful. His life hadn't gone the way 16-year-old him had planned. It had gone deeper. And when he lay down to sleep, he whispered something different than he had as a boy. Not the big leagues, but thank you. So if you're holding on to a dream tonight or grieving one that slipped away, remember this. The story isn't over. The field may change. The role may change. But your purpose? That can grow into something even more beautiful than you imagined. Now close your eyes and rest knowing that even detours can lead to joy. Good night.